Well, thanks for having me, Carl. And then there's a lot in there. So let me try to unpack a few of those things. I do agree that I think there are elements of growth in younger users where there's a more diversified engagement base across a wide variety of apps. And you have to sort of capture as much of that growth as you possibly can. And the competitive intensity for that growth is as high as it's ever been. So that is a headwind they face. And obviously, advertising industry changes more broadly act as a headwind to revenue. We believe the way the company articulated forward guidance back in July articulated and captured a lot of that forward headwind, especially from some of the Apple changes that have been talked about. So we don't see a lot of downside to financial forecasts. We're always going to remain vigilant in terms of forward growth, especially from a younger demographic, though we have pointed out in some of our research that the older demographic is one of the fastest growing demographic on the Facebook Blue app and in Instagram. And frankly, advertising dollars align more with 40, 50, 60 plus year olds than they do with 16-year-olds, especially over shorter duration periods of time. But I also do want to make the point that I think some of the forward execution that's needed by Facebook into initiatives like shopping, into initiatives like Oculus and the metaverse, into monetizing reels and video, the execution goes up as needed to sustain growth over the medium to long term there versus, let's call it the core Blue newsfeed app that has fueled a lot of the growth over the last 3 to 5 years.
That's interesting. You know, we talked about this a bit earlier in the week with some early Facebook investors at Code. One view was that the metaverse dynamic thesis is a little bit more medium term and that even things like AI might be on a burner that is in front of that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think the metaverse is a concept I think I would put in the medium to long-term camp. When we just reinitiated coverage at Goldman 2 weeks ago, we framed the concept that over the next 3 to 10 years, we're going to move from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. Web 3.0, the metaverse, augmented reality, AI and machine learning, the creator economy. These are all elements of Web 3.0 that I think are going to play out over a longer duration than the next, let's say, 12 to 24 months. I think executing on things like the blurring of the lines between commerce and advertising, which, by the way, you're seeing all across the sector. Amazon, as Julia just mentioned, Google and what they announced at their Search On event yesterday, and more of the blurring of the lines between what's traditionally been commerce and advertising. We think that's more short to medium term, and watching execution and watching how dollars follow product innovation is probably going to lead to more money-making ideas in the sector over the shorter duration.
Yeah. Eric, stick around. I want to throw here to a soundbite from Senator Richard Blumenthal from just moments ago in this hearing, where he compares Facebook to big tobacco.
Facebook has taken big tobacco's playbook. It has hidden its own research on addiction and the toxic effects of its products. It has attempted to deceive the public and us in Congress about what it knows, and it has weaponized childhood vulnerabilities against children themselves.
This isn't the first time this comparison has been made. Of course, we heard Mark Benioff years ago say that Facebook is like social media is like cigarettes. Eric, I'm just curious at what point you think this starts to become a fundamental distraction for Facebook. When does this start to impact either operations or advertising, to my point earlier that there hasn't been a boycott on this issue yet?
Yeah, so a couple things there. We have not made the analogy between social media and big tobacco, so I'll leave that to the senator and his comments as opposed to weighing in there. I think if you take a further step back, look, advertisers want to align their dollars with platforms they feel are safe and that amplify their brands in a good light and with a good context. So the extent to which some of these themes proliferate over the years. You have seen boycotts before across other platforms as well, not just on Facebook. To the earlier point you made, Julia, we've been out doing our own digital advertising checks at the end of September into early October, and we're not picking up anything that would say a boycott is imminent based on some of the things the Wall Street Journal has said, but we can't ignore that. We can't be obtuse to the fact that that could pop up back on the radar screen, and we think investors are focused on it. But as of right now, we don't see anything like that out in the advertising industry from the conversations we've had.